Officer Ethan Hale froze when he heard Duke's growl shift. It wasn't the sound of a dog sensing a rabbit or a wandering hiker. It was the low, vibrating warning that meant another life was in danger. His partner, Officer Grace Marlin, tightened her grip on the leash as Willow strained forward, tail rigid, nose trembling as if reading invisible messages written into the wind. "Easy, easy," Ethan murmured, though his voice carried its own tremor. The forest was large, messy, unpredictable, but Duke had never misread fear. Not once. The dogs pulled harder now, tugging the officers down a narrow, winding path where the sunlight thinned and the cold settled deeper. Branches snapped under their boots. The sobbing sound grew clearer, softer than a whisper, fragile like something that could vanish if they moved too quickly. Then Willow stopped, completely. Her body dropped low, her ears pinned back, and a quiet whine slipped out of her throat. She wasn't afraid. She was pleading. "Grace," Ethan said under his breath. "Someone's here." They moved slowly, every footstep deliberate. Duke approached a mound of leaves and fallen branches near a decaying log. His tail lowered, his head tilted. With a careful nudge of his nose, he brushed aside a layer of leaves. A small, bare foot appeared. Grace gasped. "Oh my God." Ethan dropped to his knee beside Duke, hands shaking as he cleared more of the debris. And there she was, a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, her wrists tied with rough rope, her face streaked with dirt and tears, her hair tangled like she'd been dragged through thorns. Her eyes fluttered open the moment she saw Ethan. She flinched. "It's okay," he whispered quickly, hands raised like a man trying not to scare a frightened bird. "You're safe now, sweetheart. You're safe." But she didn't speak. She didn't even breathe properly. Her small chest rose and rushed, panicked bursts, the kind that belonged to someone who'd been crying for so long she'd forgotten how to stop. Grace knelt next to Willow, who gently pressed her head against the girl's leg. The child's trembling slowed, not from Ethan's voice, but from Willow's warmth. Animals could reach places humans couldn't. Ethan grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit K9-3. We found a minor. Female, approximately 8 years old. Bound, conscious but in shock. Send EMS now." Coordinates following. Static crackled, a pause. Then confirmation. The girl tried to speak, a crushed, tiny sound, like she was forcing words through pain. Grace leaned close. "Sweetheart, can you tell us your name?" The child swallowed hard, her lips barely moving. Lily." Willow nudged her again, softer this time. Ethan cut the ropes around her wrists, the strands leaving deep angry marks on her skin. Whoever had tied her hadn't cared whether she could feel her hands afterward, or whether she survived at all. "Lily," Grace repeated gently. "Are you hurt anywhere? Can you move?" Lily tried to sit up, but winced sharply, grabbing her side. Grace steadied her. Duke stood guard, body blocking the forest behind them as if daring anything to come closer. Ethan scanned the trees, his instincts screaming that they weren't alone. The forest felt watched, hollow, like the air itself held a secret. "Grace, this wasn't an accident," he said quietly. "Someone left her here. Someone who expected no one to find her." Grace nodded grimly. "But our dogs did." Lily looked between them, her lash sweat, her voice barely a breath. He said. He'd come back." Ethan froze. "Who?" But Lily didn't answer. Her tiny fingers curled into Willow's fur, holding on as if the world outside the dog's warmth was too frightening to face. The forest shifted again, a branch cracking far behind them. Grace's hand moved to her holster. Ethan whispered, "We need to get her out. Now." He lifted Lily carefully, and she clung to him with desperate, shaking arms. Duke growled low again, scanning the tree line. Something, or someone, was still out there. They started back toward the trail, moving quickly but not running. Running would be panic. Running would be permission for fear to swallow them whole. But then Lily spoke again, barely audible against Ethan's chest. "He told me not to scream." Ethan swallowed hard. "Sweetheart, who told you that?" She trembled. "The man, with the black gloves." Just then, Duke snarled, and Ethan understood. Whatever had hurt this little girl wasn't far behind. The forest felt tighter now, as if every tree leaned in to listen. Ethan adjusted Lily's weight in his arms, trying to steady her trembling. Grace stayed close beside him, one hand on Willow's leash, the other resting near her holster. Neither officer spoke. They only exchanged glances. Sharp, cautious, urgent. Duke took the lead again, his paws silent but deliberate, nose cutting the damp air. He wasn't searching anymore. No, he was tracking, following a scent only he understood, a warning built into the earth itself. Lily's voice trembled against Ethan's shoulder. He said he'd come back when it got dark. Grace looked over quickly, her expression tightening. Dark? Why dark? Lily shook her head. He said, nobody looks in the woods at night. A cold heaviness settled in Ethan's stomach. Whoever this man was, he didn't expect the girl to survive. She wasn't meant to be found at all. Ethan kept his tone calm, steady. You're safe now. Lily, you're with us. And we're not letting anything happen to you. But the girl's grip only tightened, her little fingers bunching into the fabric of his uniform as if she didn't quite believe safety was real. They reached a wider clearing where sunlight spilled through the branches, warming patches of moss and scattered wild flowers. And for a moment, Lily's eyes fluttered toward the light, as if remembering what daylight felt like. Willow nudged her foot gently. Duke circled them once, then lifted his head. Sniffing sharply, Grace exhaled. He's sending something again. Footprints. Ethan murmured. Maybe. Or something left behind. Grace lowered her voice. But he's tense. Duke suddenly let out a short, hard bark, the kind that meant follow me. He took off down a sloping ridge, not too fast, but fast enough to signal urgency. Stay close, Ethan told Grace, adjusting Lily again before moving after the dog. The ridge led to a small muddy patch near a creek, uneven ground, tangled roots, and deep boot prints leading toward the darker side of the forest. Fresh, very fresh. Grace crouched beside one, size 11 or 12. Heavy. He was running. Ethan scanned the trees. The breeze shifted, carrying the faint scent of gasoline. He parked nearby. Duke barked again, this time facing the direction of the prints, his body vibrating with tension. Willow leaned forward too, whining as if urging them to move faster before they could examine more. Lily whimpered, a soft, broken sound that made Ethan glance down quickly. Her eyes were wide with fear again. Don't go that way. Grace softened her voice. Why not, sweetheart? Lily shook her head, tears spilling despite her best effort to hold them back. That's where he took my friend. Ethan's breath caught. Your friend. There's someone else. Lily nodded urgently. Her name is Emma. She's 9, he said. She screams too much. The officers exchanged a look, dread and determination crashing together. Grace's voice steadied. Ethan, if Emma's out here, I know. He swallowed hard. We don't have time. Duke pawed the boot print, then barked again, more forcefully this time. Grace looked at Lily. Sweetheart, is Emma hurt? Lily nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. He pushed her, and she didn't get up. Ethan felt Lily's heartbeat thudding against his chest. Too fast, too scared, too fragile. She shouldn't have witnessed anything like this. No child should. He lifted his radio again. Dispatch, we have possible second victim. Female, age 9. We need backup units to sweep the North Woods immediately. The reply was quick. Units en route. 8 to 6 minutes. 6 minutes. In a forest this dense, that might as well have been an hour. Lily whispered again. Please find her. We will, Ethan promised. I swear. But just then, Willow's ears shot up. She stared at something beyond the creek. Something unseen. Duke mirrored her posture, his body low, every muscle coiled. Grace followed their gaze. They see something. Ethan tightened his grip on Lily. Grace, stay alert. A soft rustle drifted through the trees. Another. Then silence. Grace raised her flashlight, pointing it toward the darker patch of woods across the creek. Hello. Her voice rang out, steady but firm. This is law enforcement. If someone's there, show yourself. Silence. Then a small hand appeared from behind a fallen log. Grace gasped. Ethan, oh God, that's Emma. She rushed forward, splashing through the shallow part of the creek, Willow bounding ahead. Ethan followed with Lily in his arms. Duke raced around the log and barked once. Not a warning, but a call. Emma lay curled against the log, shaking violently, her ankle twisted, her lip split, her hair was tangled, her face streaked with tears and dirt. But she was alive. Grace knelt immediately. Emma, sweetie, you're safe now. Emma's eyes flicked open, terrified, disoriented. Is he still here? Grace shook her head softly. No, not anymore. Lily wriggled in Ethan's arms, reaching out. Emma. The moment the two girls saw each other, Emma burst into sobs. Not just fear, but relief so enormous it broke her open. Grace pulled her gently into a sitting position, letting the girls cling to each other. Ethan exhaled shakily. We found them both. Thank God. But before relief had time to settle, Duke growled again. Loud. Sharp. Urgent. Grace stiffened. He's near. Ethan. He's still near. The forest held its breath, and then a man's voice echoed from somewhere behind the trees. You weren't supposed to find them. Duke's bark exploded through the clearing. Deeper. Sharper. Protective in a way Ethan had only heard a handful of times in his entire career. Willow mirrored him, her body dropping low, hackles rising as she positioned herself between the girls and the direction of the voice. Grace pulled Emma closer, shielding her with her own body. Ethan shifted Lily behind him, one hand gripping the tree trunk beside them for cover, the other hovering near his holster. The man's voice came again, calm, chillingly calm. You officers don't understand. They were meant to stay quiet. Ethan's jaw locked. Show yourself, he shouted, hands where I can see them. Silence. The woods swallowed the words whole. Duke advanced a step, nose twitching, body rigid. Grace whispered, Ethan, he's watching us. I know. He kept his voice low, his eyes sweeping every shadow. Keep the girls behind cover. Backup is 3 minutes out. 3 minutes. And yet the wrong kind of 3 minutes. The kind that stretched long enough for everything to go terribly, irreversibly wrong. Lily clung to Ethan's sleeve. Please don't let him take us again, she whispered, tears streaking her dirt-covered cheeks. Ethan looked down at her shaking hands, her trembling lip, and his resolve sharpened into steel. No one is taking you ever again, he said, his voice firm enough to cut through fear. Grace tried to comfort Emma too, brushing away a strand of hair stuck to her tear-damp face. Sweetheart, you're safe. We're right here with you. Emma looked up at her, eyes swollen. He said he was coming back for us. Grace swallowed hard but forced a soft smile. He can't have you anymore. Duke let out a warning snarl. Ethan shifted his stance. Movement. Left. Grace nodded, shifting Emma behind a tree trunk. Willow stayed pressed against the girl, her body blocking her completely. Ethan stepped forward slightly, just enough to get a better angle, but not enough to expose himself fully. Last warning, he called out. Step out with your hands up. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a slow chuckle drifted through the trees, a laugh. Not loud, but wrong. Too calm for a man being confronted by armed officers. Grace stiffened. He's not scared of us. He should be, Ethan muttered. A branch snapped somewhere to the right this time, and Duke wheeled around, barking furiously. Ethan raised his flashlight, sweeping it across the dense brush. The beam caught nothing but branches, leaves, and the shifting shadows of morning light. Ethan, Grace whispered. He's circling us, I know. Stay alert. Lily and Emma held each other tightly, their small shoulders trembling. Willow pressed close to them, growling low. Duke advanced another step, snarling, every tooth visible. Then Lily suddenly gasped. He wears a mask. Grace looked down sharply. What kind of mask? Lily pointed toward the darker line of trees. Black. His eyes look empty. Ethan's stomach dropped. Grace. That's why Duke can't lock on him properly. Sense blocked. Grace cursed under her breath. The rustling grew louder now, closer, like a slow, deliberate shuffle. The sound of someone choosing to reveal himself, but on his terms, not theirs. Then, from between two thick oaks, a tall man stepped out. He wore dark boots, a dirty jacket, and a black ski mask that covered every inch of his face except the hollow, emotionless eyes staring straight at them. He held nothing visible in his hands, but Ethan didn't trust that for even a second. Ethan raised his weapon. "Stop right there." Down on the ground, the man didn't flinch, didn't blink, only tilted his head slowly, as if studying them. Then he pointed directly at Lily. She screams the loudest. Lily collapsed into a sob. Grace stood up fully, her own weapon drawn, voice steady as stone. "One more step, and you're not walking out of these woods." The man chuckled again, quiet, slow, and took a single step forward. Duke lunged, teeth bared, but Ethan barked out, "Stay." The dog froze mid-surge, muscles quivering. Emma whimpered, "Please, make him go away." Ethan steadied his breathing. "Sir," he said, keeping his voice controlled, "put your hands up and get on your knees. Backup is on the way. Don't make this worse." The man didn't move. He lifted his hands, not in surrender, but slowly, palms open, as if mocking them. "Do you hear that?" he said softly. Grace narrowed her eyes. "Hear what?" "The quiet," he murmured. "The quiet before you lose them again." Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. "Girls, stay behind us." Lily and Emma ducked back, Willow protecting them. The masked man took another step forward. Ethan braced, Grace braced. Duke snarled, vibrating with the need to protect. And then a twig snapped behind them. Someone else was there. The girls screamed. Willow spun around. Duke barked so loudly the forest shook. Ethan realized the horrifying truth. The masked man wasn't alone. Asterisk for a split second. No one moved. Not the officers, not the girls, not even the dogs. The entire forest seemed to freeze, holding its breath as the realization crashed over them. There wasn't just one man hunting these children. There were two. Ethan spun toward the sound behind them. Weapon raised, adrenaline surging in a violent wave. Grace shifted instantly, placing herself in a protective triangle around the girls, with Willow guarding their legs and Duke snapping into position like a shield of muscle and teeth. From behind a cluster of thick brush, a second figure stepped out, shorter than the masked man, broader, wearing the same dark jacket and the same unsettling black gloves that Lily had described. His face wasn't fully covered, but dirt and shadow masked everything except a thin, crooked grin. "Well," the second man drawled, "seems our little forest picnic just got crowded." Emma clung to Grace's leg, shaking so hard Grace could feel the tremors through her uniform. Lily buried her face into Willow's fur. Ethan kept his voice low. "Even, both of you get on the ground. Now." The first masked man slowly tilted his head, like he found the request amusing. "Oh, officer, it's too late for that." Grace kept her aim steady, even as sweat slid down her temple. "Don't test us. Not with two minors right behind us." "Minors?" The second man scoffed. "They're problems, and problems get removed." Willow growled, a deep, vibrating warning. Duke growled too, louder, angrier, as if daring either man to come closer. Ethan's mind raced. Two suspects, two children, two officers. Backup still over a minute out, and the forest terrain was working against them, confusing echoes, shifting shadows, too many angles to guard at the same time. The masked man stepped closer. "Give them back," he said softly. "They belong to me." Ethan took a single step forward, blocking Lily completely with his body. "If you take even one more step, I will drop you where you stand." The man paused, not out of fear, but calculation. The second man's gaze swept over Grace, then the girls, then the dogs. "You know, we were supposed to finish this last night." Little Lily here wriggled too much. "Kids panic. You know how it is. You're sick." Grace snapped. "Both of you," he shrugged. "Call it a hobby?" Duke barked violently, sensing the rising threat. Willow mirrored him, baring her teeth, a surprisingly fierce snarl for a dog so gentle with the girls. Then the masked man whispered, "Dogs first." Ethan didn't wait. He fired a warning shot into the dirt between them. "Move and you won't get another warning," he shouted, voice rising with fury he could no longer hide. The shot made Emma scream. Lily clung tighter to Willow. Birds erupted from the trees in a frantic wave, their wings slicing through the air. But the men didn't run. They didn't flinch. They only exchanged a glance, one that sent cold dread slicing down Ethan's spine. They were planning something. Grace whispered, "Ethan, he's reaching for something." "I see it." Before either suspect could react, Duke lunged, but not at the men. He lunged at Ethan, slamming into him with the full weight of a trained canine, knocking him sideways, just as something whistled past Ethan's head and buried itself into the tree behind him. A knife, thrown with lethal accuracy. If Duke hadn't moved, Ethan's breath caught. Good boy, he gasped, scrambling to his feet. The masked man clicked his tongue. Close, so close. Grace fired another warning shot. "Drop everything and get down." The second man snarled and reached behind his jacket. "Ethan." Grace shouted. Ethan didn't think. He tackled the girls, covering both with his body as Duke and Willow surged forward to intercept the motion. The forest exploded into chaos. Duke lunged for the man's arm. Willow barreled into his leg with terrifying force. The suspect screamed, a ragged, furious sound. Grace sprinted forward, kicking the man's hand away before he could reach the weapon. She pinned him down, shouting, "Don't move." But the masked man used the distraction. He sprinted toward Ethan and the girls. Lily screamed. Emma grabbed Lily's hand. Ethan rolled to shield them, weapon raised, but the man was already too close. Duke tore himself away from the first suspect mid-fight and raced toward the masked man, barking wildly. Willow followed, a streak of golden fury. The masked man skidded to a stop, realizing two trained canines were about to collide with him at full force. For the first time, he hesitated. For the first time, fear flickered in those empty eyes. He turned to run. Ethan pointed his weapon. "Stop." Duke leapt. The masked man vanished into the trees. "Ethan," Grace shouted, wrestling the first suspect to the ground. "Go. I've got this one." Ethan nodded sharply and sprinted after Duke and Willow, the sound of their furious barks echoing through the forest like thunder. The girls clung to each other, sobbing, watching the man who hurt them disappear into the dark woods. And for the first time, Emma whispered, "Please, please don't let him get away." Ethan raced through the trees, branches slapping his arms and uniform as he pushed himself harder than he had in years. Duke and Willow darted ahead, weaving between trunks with impossible precision, their barks slicing through the forest like sharp warnings. The masked man was fast, too fast, but the dogs were gaining on him, driving him deeper into the woods, away from the girls, away from Grace. "Duke, Willow, watch your distance," Ethan shouted, though he knew the dogs were trained for this. They knew when to bite, when to hold back, when to corner. But this man wasn't running blindly. He knew these woods. That worried Ethan more than the chase itself. The forest thickened ahead, leaves crunching beneath heavy boots, the sound bouncing between trees in strange echoes. Ethan kept his weapon drawn low, not firing. Not with Duke and Willow, though close to the suspect. He couldn't risk hitting one of them. "Stop." Ethan yelled again. "You have nowhere to go." The man didn't stop. Instead, he veered sharply left, down a steep decline where the ground dipped into a darker section of the woods. Duke followed without hesitation, Willow right behind him, their barks growing fiercer as the suspect stumbled. Ethan slid down the slope, catching himself on a root. He could see the masked man ahead, jumping over a fallen log, clutching his ribs as if Duke's earlier lunge had made contact. The man reached a cluster of boulders and ducked behind them. Duke skidded to a halt, barking furiously, but not entering the tight space. Willow lowered her head, sniffing the air, muscles tight with anticipation. Ethan slowed, raising his weapon, keeping his movements quiet. "Easy, easy," he whispered to the dogs. "Hold." They obeyed instantly, but their bodies vibrated with tension, waiting for the command to strike. Ethan crouched, listening. There, the faint crunch of boots shifting behind the rocks. The man was hiding, maybe waiting to ambush, maybe catching his breath. Ethan steadied his voice. "It's over. You're surrounded. Backup is seconds away." Come out while you still have a chance. Double quotes silence. Ethan took a step forward. Another. Duke growled, the deep, guttural sound that meant danger. Now. Ethan froze. Then the masked man burst from behind the rocks, swinging a long, broken branch like a club. He charged straight at Ethan, wild and reckless. Duke, take him! Ethan shouted. The shepherd launched himself forward, hitting the man mid-run. They crashed into the dirt, the branch flying from the man's hand. Willow leapt in next, grabbing the man's sleeve, preventing him from reaching for anything. The suspect thrashed violently, kicking, twisting, trying to break free, but Duke's jaws locked around his forearm, holding him down without crushing. The perfect train grip. Ethan closed the distance, weapon raised. Don't move. The man kicked again, hitting Duke's side. Duke released only for a split second, but it was enough for the masked man to reach for his boot. Ethan lunged, kicking the man's hand away before he could grab whatever he was hiding. The suspect roared in frustration, mask shifting slightly, revealing part of a scar down his cheek. Then he spat. You should have left them in the dark. Ethan shoved his boot into the man's chest, pinning him. You don't get to speak about those girls, the man writhed. But this time, Duke and Willow moved in perfect sync, one pinning the legs, the other taking control of the arm again. Ethan cuffed him swiftly, adrenaline pounding so loud in his ears he barely heard the distant sirens growing closer. Backup had arrived. He exhaled, shaky, hard, as other officers rushed through the trees toward his location. Officer Ramirez reached him first. You okay, Hale? Yeah, Ethan breathed. Thanks to the dogs. Ramirez knelt beside the masked man. This him. One of them, Ethan said darkly. Grace has the other. Paramedics arrived moments later, following the trail Ethan had left. Ethan finally looked down at Duke and Willow, both panting, both exhausted, but unharmed. He crouched, running his hands gently along Duke's side where the kick had landed. You saved my life, Ethan murmured. Good boy, good boy. Duke dropped his head into Ethan's chest, panting hard. Willow nudged his knee, whining softly, as if reminding him she had helped. Ethan smiled, placing a hand on her head. And you, hero of the day. The suspect laughed suddenly, a broken, bitter sound. You think this ends with me? He rasped. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Ethan's eyes hardened. You're done. Your partner's done. Those girls are safe. It ends here. The man smirked behind the mask. There's always another night. Ethan inhaled sharply, but didn't give the man the satisfaction of a reaction. He stood up instead, signaling to officers to take the suspect into custody. Get him out of my sight, Ethan said coldly. As they dragged the masked man away, Duke and Willow finally relaxed their posture. Ethan lifted his radio. Grace. Suspect 1 is in custody. Dogs are secure. I'm heading back to the girls. Grace's voice came back, shaky, but relieved. Copy that. They're asking for you. And for the first time since the chase began, Ethan allowed himself to breathe. The girls were safe, but the damage inside them, that would take much longer to heal. Ethan jogged back through the forest trail, following the faint echoes of radio chatter and Grace's earlier calls. His heartbeat was finally beginning to settle, but the weight of everything, the chase, the knives, the fear in the girls' voices, clung to him like fog. Duke and Willow padded beside him, tired but alert, their tails lowered, their breaths heavy from the exertion. As the trees thinned, he saw Grace kneeling beside Lily and Emma. Both girls were wrapped in emergency blankets now, their small frames shivering less than before. Emma clutched a stuffed bear an Emmet had given her, holding it so tightly, its seams strained. Lily's fingers were woven into Willow's fur, her grip refusing to loosen even when she saw Ethan approaching. Grace rose when she spotted him. You got him? Ethan nodded, keeping his voice soft for the girl's sake. Yeah, and he's not going to hurt anyone again. Emma let out a long, shaking exhale, relief breaking through in tiny, trembling pieces. Lily wiped her face with the back of her hand, smearing dirt and tears into a single streak. Ethan crouched down beside them. You both did so well. You were brave. Braver than most adults I know. Emma's lip quivered. Is he really gone? Gone, Ethan confirmed. Locked up. And the other man too. Lily lifted her face. He won't come back. No, Ethan said firmly. Not ever again. Willow pressed her head into Lily's side, and Lily leaned into the dog instinctively, feeling safer there than anywhere else in the world. Grace knelt beside Emma again. Paramedics want to take you both to the hospital, just to check you over. You'll be okay. Sweetheart. Emma nodded but didn't move. Will you come too? Grace's eyes softened. We'll be right behind you. The girls finally agreed to stand. They took each other's hands before moving toward the waiting EMTs, a fragile, trembling bond forged in fear, but rooted in something stronger. As they were led away, Ethan rose slowly, the reality of what had happened finally crashing into him. Grace, he said quietly, there could have been more girls. If Duke and Willow hadn't found them. Grace finished the sentence with a shudder. We'd be calling parents instead of ambulances. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, trying to chase off the chill. That guy. He said something. About there being more. About this not ending. Grace frowned. We'll dig into it. For now, those girls are alive. That's what matters. But Ethan didn't feel the relief he should have. Not fully. He watched Lily and Emma being carried toward the trucks, both wrapped in blankets, both holding hands tightly, refusing to let go. Grace, he whispered. I keep thinking, what if we had been 10 minutes later? Grace placed a hand on his arm. But we weren't. And that's because of them. She nodded toward Duke and Willow. Duke sat stoically, chest puffed out, band of sunlight cutting across his fur. Willow nudged Ethan's hand, looking up with warm, trusting eyes, as if she didn't fully understand what she'd saved, only that she had done good. Ethan crouched and wrapped both dogs in his arms. You two, he said softly, voice thick, you saved those kids. Duke leaned into the embrace, resting his head on Ethan's shoulder. Willow pawed softly at Ethan's knee, wanting the same affection. The forest felt empty now, the tension drained, the shadows retreating. But something still lingered in the air, like the echo of a nightmare that hadn't fully faded yet. An EMT approached. Officers, we're taking the girls to St. Mary's Hospital. You're welcome to follow the ambulance. Grace nodded. We'll be right behind you. Ethan watched as the back doors closed gently around Lily and Emma. Lily looked out the small window, her eyes searching for Ethan. He gave her a reassuring nod. She tried to smile, a tiny, tired smile. Before the ambulance pulled away, Grace exhaled. They're safe. That's what counts. Yeah, Ethan said. But safe doesn't mean healed. Grace didn't disagree. They walked back toward the patrol vehicles, dogs trotting loyally beside them. The sun had risen higher, warming the trail in soft gold light. But Ethan couldn't shake the image of the masked man's eyes. Hollow, cold, certain. He stopped halfway down the trail. Grace, what he said. About this not ending. Grace paused too. What are you thinking? That this wasn't random, Ethan whispered. It wasn't 2 men grabbing kids in the woods. It felt organized. Grace's face paled. Ethan. Yeah, he stared down the trail, hands clenched. We're not done with this. Duke barked once. Low, warning, like, as if agreeing. Willow pressed gently against Ethan's leg, sensing the shift in his mood. Grace swallowed hard. Let's focus on the girls first, then we'll follow the rest of this wherever it leads. Ethan nodded, but something in his chest remained unsettled. Everything they had uncovered today felt like only the beginning. St. Mary's Hospital sat on a quiet hill overlooking the town, its glass windows catching the late morning sun in soft glimmers. Inside, everything smelled of antiseptic and calm, a stark contrast to the nightmare the girls had come from. Nurses moved quickly, but gently, speaking in soft tones, as they guided Lily and Emma into a small examination room. Ethan and Grace stood just outside the doorway, giving the girls space, but refusing to be farther than a few steps away. Duke and Willow waited quietly in the hallway, both lying down with their heads on their paws, utterly exhausted yet unwilling to sleep until the tension in the air faded. Lily lay on the hospital bed, clutching the blanket to her chest. Emma sat on a stool beside her, swinging her legs nervously. Every few seconds, Emma touched her wrist, where the rope had burned her skin raw, then hid her hand again, as if ashamed of the mark. A nurse finished checking Lily's vitals. "They're stable," she told the officers. "Shaken, but physically okay. They'll need rest and trauma counseling. But you two got them out in time." Ethan nodded, though the relief didn't erase the memory of what could have happened. Grace exhaled quietly, tension slowly unwinding from her shoulders. Lily lifted her head. Can Duke come in?" The nurse smiled softly. "Actually, yes. Therapy dogs visit sometimes. Canine units count." Grace grinned. "You heard her, Duke." The shepherd stood immediately, tail thumping once against the wall, before he padded inside. Willow followed, her golden tail wagging low and slow. Lily reached for Duke's fur as if touching safety itself. Emma leaned against Willow, finding warmth in the dog's gentle presence. For the first time since the woods, their shaking eased, replaced by the small, careful breaths of children trying to feel normal again. Ethan looked away briefly, swallowing hard. There was something about seeing innocence trying to rebuild itself that hit deeper than any chase or arrest ever could. Grace nudged him lightly. "Hey." He glanced over. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "You've been somewhere else since we got here." Ethan hesitated. "It's what he said. That something bigger is going on." Grace crossed her arms. "Ethan, I'm not saying you're wrong, but today was already heavy enough. Let's not pull tomorrow's darkness onto today." He sighed. "Maybe," but Grace could see the worrying still burning behind his eyes. Before she could say more, a tall woman in her late 30s rushed down the hallway, hair disheveled, eyes swollen from crying. She nearly tripped in her haste to get to the room. "Lily," she choked out. "Oh my God, Lily?" Lily gasped. "Mom." The woman rushed in, falling to her knees beside her daughter and pulling her into the kind of embrace that only comes from fear of loss. Lily sobbed into her mother's shoulder, tiny fingers clutching her shirt like she was afraid to let go again. Emma watched with a longing expression, deep, aching. Then another woman appeared, slightly older, hair tied back in a loose bun, breath ragged as if she'd sprinted across the entire hospital. "Emma." She dropped to the floor, gathering her daughter in her arms. My baby. My baby." Emma's arms wrapped around her mother so tight her knuckles whitened. The room overflowed with crying. Relief, terror, gratitude all tangled together. Ethan stepped back to give the family space. Grace did the same. It wasn't their moment anymore. For the girls, only their mothers could replace the fear with something warm again. Emma's mom looked up with red eyes. Thank you. If you hadn't found them." Ethan shook his head. "Your girls saved each other. We just helped them get home." Lily's mom reached out, gripping Ethan's hand with trembling fingers. "You saved my daughter's life. I can never repay that." Ethan didn't know what to say. Praise never sat comfortably with him. But Grace spoke for both of them. They're safe now. That's what matters. After several minutes, the mothers calmed enough to hold their girls in quiet, soothing silence. Duke and Willow stayed close, offering presence and warmth, as if understanding the fragile emotions swirling in the room. Ethan stepped outside, leaning against the hallway wall. The adrenaline had finally drained, leaving a hollow heaviness in its wake. Grace joined him, slipping her hands into her pockets. "You know, for what it's worth, you did everything right today." "I keep thinking about the night before," Ethan murmured. "How long they were out there. How scared they must have been." Grace nodded. "Yeah, but they're alive." Ethan stared at the floor. "They said he told them not to scream, like he'd done this before." Grace's expression shifted, quiet understanding replacing her earlier calm. "We'll look into every missing child report, every pattern, every possible link. And if there's more behind this, we'll stop it." Ethan nodded slowly. Duke nudged his leg, sensing his distress. Willow pressed her head into his thigh. Their presence grounded him. Grace looked into the examination room, watching the mothers rock their daughters gently. "You know what this moment is," she whispered. "What?" "A reminder that even after horror, love still wins." Ethan followed her gaze. She was right. And he felt something inside him, a glimmer of warmth piercing through the dark weight. Later, that afternoon, the hospital quieted. Visiting hours slowed. Footsteps faded, and the heavy storm of emotions softened into something gentler, the kind of silence that follows survival, not fear. Lily and Emma slept in their beds now, curled close to their mothers, small chests rising and falling in peaceful rhythm. For the first time in far too long, their dreams belonged to them again. Outside in the hallway, Ethan sat on a bench beside Duke and Willow. Duke rested his head on Ethan's boot, eyes half closed, finally allowing himself to drift. Willow leaned against Ethan's leg, her eyelids fluttering but fighting sleep, as if she wanted to stay awake just in case Lily or Emma needed her again. Grace arrived with 2 cups of coffee, one black, one with the exact amount of sugar Ethan never admitted he liked. She handed the sweeter one to him without comment. He smirked faintly. "How do you always know?" She shrugged. "Instinct." He took a slow sip. Warmth spread through him, quieting the lingering tremors beneath his ribs. Grace sat beside him, her gaze drifting to the closed door of the girls' room. "They're safe." The mothers finally stopped shaking. "Everything is settling." Ethan nodded. "Feels like the whole world exhaled today." Grace leaned back. "I've seen a lot of bad things in this job, but watching a mother hold her child after thinking she'd never see her again, that hits different." "It does," Ethan said softly. A nurse passed by and paused. "If it helps, they're asking to see you both when they wake up. They said you make them feel safe." Ethan smiled, a gentle, tired smile. "We'll be here." The nurse nodded and continued down the hall. Grace lifted her coffee, swirling it gently. "You know what gets me?" "What?" The girls weren't just trying to survive. They were trying to protect each other. In all that fear, Lily still looked for Emma, and Emma still kept telling Lily not to give up. Ethan looked at the dogs. Duke knew. Willow knew. They kept guiding us toward them. Grace chuckled under her breath. "Makes you wonder if dogs see something we can't." Ethan scratched Duke behind the ear. "They see hearts better than we do." For a while, they sat quietly, letting the weight of the day settle into their bones, but not crush them. The hospital lights cast a warm glow against the white floor tiles, and outside the large window, golden streaks of sunset spread across the sky. Grace shifted. "You planning to go home after this?" Ethan let out a slow breath. "Thought I would, but then I pictured walking into an empty house, and it didn't feel right." Grace nodded. "Yeah, today wasn't the kind of day you walk away from quickly." Ethan stared down at his hands. "Grace, what if this wasn't random? What if these 2 guys were part of something bigger?" "Then we'll find out," she said simply. "One step at a time." He looked at her. "You really think we can stop it?" Grace held his gaze, steady, unwavering. "I know we can, because today wasn't about fear winning. Today was proof that good still shows up, that kindness hits back, that 2 dogs and a stubborn officers can change someone's fate." Ethan's breath softened. "Yeah, maybe you're right." "I'm always right," Grace said, bumping her shoulder into his. He chuckled. At that moment, Lily's mother stepped into the hallway. She approached slowly, wiping her eyes, her voice soft but clear. "They're awake, and they want to see you. Both of you." Ethan rose, Duke instantly alert. Willow stood and shook out her fur, ready. Grace followed them into the room. Lily sat up, arms still wrapped around her blanket. Emma sat beside her, eyes still a bit red but glowing with relief. The girls looked at Ethan and Grace the way children look at superheroes, not because they were perfect, but because they showed up. Lily extended her hand shakily. Can I hug Duke?" Ethan nodded. "Of course." Duke walked forward gently, placing his head on the edge of her bed. Lily wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face into his fur. Emma hugged Willow, whispering something only the dog could hear. Ethan felt something deep in his chest shift, a quiet, powerful swell of emotion. Lily looked up. "Thank you for finding us," Emma echoed, voice small. "You saved our lives." Ethan didn't know what to say. Grace knelt beside the girls. "You saved each other. We just followed the trail your courage left behind." The girl smiled, tired, broken, healing, but real. A soft knock came from the doorway. A doctor stepped inside. They'll stay overnight for observation, but they're going to be okay. Those words hit Ethan like sunlight after a storm. He exhaled slowly. Deeply, Grace placed a hand on his back. Steady, reassuring. The nightmare was ending, and something hopeful was beginning.